What's up, everyone? This is the Unrestricted podcast, because here with us,
anything goes.
And we got some very, very interesting topics today. I just want to get right into it. I don't even want to mess around. And this is a real interesting dynamic as far as this first one goes. I want to speak on, being a single child versus growing up with siblings. I mean, I think the single child, to me, is a little more interesting as far as, the differences you can have in your upbringing, and I know that's more on your side. So you kind of want to speak on single child, how it was growing up.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird. So I kind of share both dynamics of being a single child and then also having siblings, of course.
Yeah.
So I don't have a huge recollection of what my life was being an only child, because my parents split when I was very young. I think I was maybe 1 or something like that when they divorced. So I don't know what it's like to have both mom and dad in the household, things like that.
Yeah.
But, both my parents remarried when I was 3 or something like that. And so on one end, on my mom's side, it's just me. They never had kids, which that's whatever, whatever their choice was, that's fine. So it was just me. And then on the other side, being with my dad, he remarried my stepmom, and she had 2 children in her previous marriage. So, I immediately had siblings at the age of, I want to say 3, so.
And how'd you feel I guess that after that point, having siblings, but obviously not the natural dynamic, where your parents are together, you guys, they have kids together and they're your full siblings. How did you feel growing up after, the age of 3 and having, these 2 siblings now that, ultimately just kind of sprung upon you, here, now you have a brother and a sister, how did they take it? How do you, how'd you feel?
I don't know. It's so crazy to think about, honestly, because when I think about my brother and sister, that's my brother and my sister. I don't think anything less of that relationship, We're all super close. We have amazing relationships right now. We were young. I want to say my brother was about 5 or 6 or something, when we first met. Yeah. And I'm very unsure because I don't know. When you're that young, your memories just start to form, this and that, and it's just when kids get together, they just kind of become friends. You know what I mean? So you don't really remember when did it happen? How did it happen?
Yeah, different than trying to become friends. If you're 14 and they get sprung into your life and you're already,
because at that point you need commonalities, to become friends. But it was just, I don't know. I feel like we just clicked, maybe. I mean, of course, my brother was a brother. Brothers are mean.
Yeah.
I want to say he was about 5. I had just turned 3, and then my sister, she was still 2 at the time. We're 8 months apart. So my sister and I grew up super, super close. I mean, we were like this, you know what I mean? So that was really fun. I think it was just cool, just kind of, I guess, living both worlds, if you will. One side, it's just me, I'm doing my own thing, I have no other brother and sister to, sorry, choked, play with, or it's just me. And then on that end, I always just had other people to hang out with. And so I just think that was a lot of fun. I always wish that I would know what it's like to have that blood brother sister bond, because I'll never know what that's like. That's something that I won't have. And I get very jealous of people who do have their mom and dad had them, their brother, their sister, whatever, I get very jealous in a sense, because I wish I had that type of bond. I feel like it's different, my brother, my sister, all of us, we love each other, we support each other, things like that. But the bond that my brother and sister share, I will never have that. So it's, I don't know. I just feel like I miss out. I get to miss out on that, and it's nothing you can really do about it. But I just share, a great bond with them.
Yeah.
But Like, I don't know, because I don't have siblings, like, from the same parents.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's something different. Like, I see you with your siblings, and I'm like, damn, like, that's cool, you know? Like,
Yeah, it's definitely a different dynamic, and I've had both. I've had, I grew up with an older sister, a younger brother, and then later on, obviously, I'll speak on, other, half siblings that came along. But I mean, growing up, like, I guess it's, you always have, like, being in the middle is really like something, I guess, like special in the sense, because you have someone that's older than you that's probably going to make all the mistakes in the world. They're going to get in trouble in school first. They're going to be the first to, say, I hate you to your parents, or really like the one to piss off your parents like the most you've ever seen them. So you're going to take that and like you're going to learn those lessons from them, and then you're going to be less likely to make them. So I guess like, it's a big responsibility being in the middle, especially if you have like a younger sibling coming up, after you, because then you kind of like, you're the one that's supposed to hold it all together. Yeah. Like, you learn the lessons, you be the example, and then they're like kind of like the angel, like.
I feel like middle children get shit on a lot though.
They do. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely probably like,
you're the most neglected, I want to say.
Yeah, I mean, and sadly, probably true, like I said, because you have someone that's older than you. They were the first ones to get the attention, mm-hmm. and in the middle, the parents and stuff are still dealing with the oldest one, mm-hmm. because they're causing the most issues typically, and then the younger one, if they're the last one, like that's the baby. They're the baby forever. They can grow up, be an adult, and they're still the baby. They're still mm-hmm. going to get the majority of the focus, and it's just the dynamic. But growing up, like I said, it's really weird, like in how, growing up, someone that's like older than you, like a year or two or whatever the case may be, you guys can really differ when you're young. Mm-hmm. Like you guys could have nothing in common. And then like my brother, in sense, is, a lot younger than me. The age gap is real real bigger.
Like what, 5 or 6 years?
It's like 6 years. Yeah. So, but we, from a very young age till now, we're very alike. Mm-hmm. We have the most in common. And like me and my sister at a later point in life kind of came around to have more things in common, and our sense of humor kind of lines up sometimes. But that was like something we really had to like develop as we became adults. But my brother, like, we have the same sense of humor.
You guys are the exact same
like we like the same sports, we like the same, like we have the same hobbies, we watch the same movies, like everything is relatable. So I feel like it's good in that sense that I had them growing up, because I got kind of like a sibling that's kind of like a real lifelong like just partner. Like if something crazy happens and like no one else can relate to it but him, like I always have him to call and be like, bro, did you see this? Like, did you hear this? And like right away he probably just looked at it mm-hmm. too, or he just seen it, and we're gonna be like, bam, but going back and forth. So I feel like it's definitely different than growing up as the only child. I mean, not that that's rough or but I'm sure it can be.
It definitely gets boring. I mean I had a lot to do growing up, I had talked about in a previous episode, I grew up on a ranch, so I feel like there was just always something to do, so I was always kept very busy. And even when chores were done, I still had all the things in my room to keep me busy, I just I can do a lot of things that preoccupy myself to where I don't get bored. And I feel like that's carried on into my adult life.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, do you think doing that, like, obviously having the chores, but then just on your alone time having to keep yourself occupied, like, did that make you easily transition into being, like, an independent person at a, as, like, a young adult?
I mean, I guess it could. I don't know if that has anything to do, like, with the way I was raised, or if that's just my mentality, personally, because I mean, me, I have to stay busy all the time. I don't know if that's just like because that's how I grew up, just always having something going on, but I just feel like I can never relax. I feel like I have to do stuff, you know. Even just yesterday when we were home, you know, I got off work and I'm just like, we need to do something because like I feel like we have all this time. We need to occupy this time with something.
Yeah.
So.
And we spoke about that a lot in other episodes, you know, just always feeling the need to do something, get something done. Like downtime doesn't feel right when you've just been like raised and developed as a hard worker.
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah, that makes sense, I guess.
I think what's like interesting though, you know, it's, you always hear a lot about like single children and they are spoiled. Like they grow up so spoiled, you know, you're like, oh, you're a single child. Oh, you got everything. Oh, you got everything. You know, like you're spoiled. You hear that all the time. And I'm like, I can't relate, you know, like, of course, you know, I didn't have to share anything with anyone because it was just me. But at the same time, like, it wasn't just like, oh, here, you're the only child. Like, take this, take everything. Like, I had to fucking work for everything that I wanted, you know?
Yeah. I guess that's more from like a parent standpoint, right? Is if your parents have that mentality or maybe just the availability to give their kid whatever they want and it's the only kid, like it's on them to make that decision. You know, am I gonna spoil this kid rotten or am I gonna like have them do chores throughout the week and then maybe like on Saturday like we can, you know, I'll give you a little allowance or we can go to the store, you can get a toy, you can get some clothes. What,
like I definitely got rewarded and stuff like oh, you know, you were good, you did all your chores, you get a prize.
And I feel like that's the right way to do it. Like that's, if you have a, you know, a single kid, that's the right way to do it and the right way to bring them up because nowadays more than ever, I mean just imagine some of these like single kid households, you know, with the way parents are nowadays, like the stuff they instill in them. It's like a lot of spoiled people probably running around here. So yeah, but I guess not. Like me, I mean, we were still taken care of. Like, you know, my sister throughout her life was like cheerleading and stuff. So like she was always like doing that with my mom, always on the go. Me, I did BMX racing. I was always with my dad on the go. And then, you know, my brother did sports, baseball, football, stuff like that. So we were always like provided for, always doing something. And I wouldn't say we were spoiled, but, you know, like if we typically wanted something that wasn't super crazy, at some point we were going to get it. You know, not without saying that we didn't put no like work in, we didn't do no chores or anything for that.
Like you still had to put in some type of effort to get this thing that you wanted.
Yeah, like that was still instilled in us that you need to work in order before you get to, you know, basically play.
I mean, I think that's important though. It's because you have things like birthdays or, you know, if you celebrate those and if you celebrate holidays like Christmas and stuff like that, like you're given things all the time. But it's like any other day. I mean, if you want something, well, do you have the money to get it because you've earned your allowance and you want to buy that for yourself? Or is it like you want it? Okay, well, show me how much you want it by, you know, being a productive member of society, like learning how to just be.
And did you spend a lot of time like after 3 years old you had siblings? Were you spending a lot of time with them like after that, or was it kind of like you were still being eased into hanging out with them?
No, like I mean, I don't know how the whole setup worked before, you know, like I don't know the details and stuff. You know, we were so little, we were just there. Like, you know, we had, I would say my siblings, like their dad, you know, they had their own like schedule, I guess, and with my mom we had our own schedule. So we were always going to my dad's house and, well, their mom's house, right? Like my stepmom. We were always going to that same house on the same days. So our schedule matched up. So, you know, I was with my mom, I think that it was like Mondays, Thursdays, every other weekend. And then I was with my dad Tuesdays, Wednesdays, every other weekend. So my schedule matched up with my sister and my brother. Okay. So we were always together, you know. We always had every other weekend with each other. We always had Tuesday, Wednesday with each other.
And could you tell the difference maybe like in their, you know, were they getting like on their side of things, were they getting like equal amounts of things? Was your brother like, did your brother have more than, you know, your sister? Or could you tell the difference between your upbringing and their like?
No, because I mean, they grew up in a, like, it's because we both had the same household with our parents.
Yeah.
And then we both had different upbringings,
Okay.
with their dad, me with my mom.
Yeah.
But everyone's still like, I would not consider my siblings to be spoiled in any way whatsoever. Like they both know like the whole hardworking method. They've always had to work for everything that they've been given, anything that they want. Like I just feel like we just always had the same type of mindset. I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's weird to think about because we did grow up so differently.
Yeah.
And it's like you're this way in one house, and then you got to come back to this house, and the rules might be a little bit different. So I feel like maybe the transition is always kind of difficult at first, but
Okay.
I don't know. Like we were like not any of us ever grew up spoiled, just getting what we wanted.
Yeah.
Like, we always had to do chores around the house. Like.
Yeah. Okay, and I'm not sure like on your parents' side, obviously you had, your mom, dad, step parents, stuff like that, and eventually, same for me, but I'm not sure if like your parents, when they first set of parents got married, like I don't know if that was young or they did it at a young age, but I know that we both got married at what some people would consider like a young age or maybe too young, or I don't know, everyone has their like, oh, this is my ideal age.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that we were still in our 20s. Mm-hmm. Basically. So what do you think that like is that ultimately like a good thing to do, bad thing? Like what was your experience with getting married at that young of an age?
I think everyone's experience is different. I mean, sometimes people get married early and it works out. My mom and my stepdad were dating for like 2 months, and they've been married like 31, 32 years now.
Yeah.
It depends. Like I do also know people who are my age that got married when they were 18 and they're still happily married. And I just feel like if you're lucky enough to find that person, like your person at such an early age,
yeah,
that's cool. Like that's something that's super rare. You don't find that. I mean, in my sense, when I met my ex-husband, we were both 22 years old, and I feel like that's very young. We were both in the military, and, you just kind of have like this wild life, you're just, everything's sort of being provided for you by the military. And so your responsibilities, you still have them, but you're kind of like, well, I don't have to do too much.
It's kind of like you don't get the real deal.
Yeah, it's not real life by any means, because they give you your housing allowance, like you always have stability, you always have the security of your paycheck coming in, and you're just like ultimately taken care of. And I don't know, so we were together for a while before we got married, almost 3 years, and like we loved each other and stuff, but I just feel like I don't know if I just wasn't truly happy in the relationship, but I was just content that I was like, okay, it's whatever, it's an all right relationship,
And this was from the jump, like, or was there a part where you were happy? And then
I think in our first year, I was super happy, like I was so in love with this person, he was everything to me. Yeah. But I just feel like once we were around a year, that's when our problems started. And I don't want to really like speak on what exactly happened. I mean, there's people that know what went down behind closed doors, and there's people who know what happened because they were there. They seen it. You know what I mean? They kind of put a stop to things, if you will. Like, so people know, there's certain people that know what went on. And so it's like that, I just made the mistake of, I guess, forgiving and trying to forget about it and stay with this person, Yeah. And I think that was my biggest mistake, is that I just ultimately knew that it was wrong and it wasn't okay, but I still stayed in that relationship. And then it got to the point where I eventually got out of the military. He was still in, and we were getting ready to move out of state. And it's like when you're a married couple in the military, it's easier to move than when you're not. They just kind of consider everything as a whole, and they just take you, move you. So he was like, well, we talked about getting married, things like that. And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I don't really know if I'm ready for it. I was like, at this point, we were 25. And I was like, I'm not sure if this is something I want to do. I was like, maybe we just wait, you
Yeah.
know? We had already gotten engaged. And I was like, yeah, let's just wait like another year, you know, just see what happens. And he's like, well, we're leaving the state this year, so we should just get married. You know, what's the point? We're already together. It's not going to change anything. And I gave in. We were engaged for a month. We got married a month later. And I was just like, well, okay, you know, he has a point. I'm going to stay with this person, you know, but that's what I regret. And that's what I'm like, I wish that I would have waited until I was older, you know, because then I wouldn't have gone. I mean, my divorce took 4 years and we don't even have kids. And that's what's fucked up, is that it took that long to divorce this person, you know, and I just think like, damn, like if I just didn't marry them, if I just stuck to my guns, like my strong feelings were like, no, I don't want to get married. Maybe we should wait.
You think waiting that year probably would have given you the real answer at the end of the day? Like, yes, move forward.
It's so hard to say, because even still, I was with this person for 8 years.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say what I would have done. But I think like if we were just not married, I would have been easier to just like look back, like not look back and just move on from each other. You know what I mean? I just feel like I just wish I would have listened to myself more.
Yeah.
And my thoughts and my feelings, because it just like it was all a front. Like we tried to play like the happy home, you know, happy relationship on the outside, but on the inside, like I was literally dying. Like it got to the point where I was just like, if I'm not on this earth, then like I'll be better, you know? Like, and that's fucked up, you know, because I was just like, okay, like, just end my life then, you know? Like, I don't need to be, like, this miserable. Like, it's just, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't like to live my life with regrets, but that will always be a big regret of mine, is just not listening to myself. And just putting myself through this torture for so long and not like trying to better myself, because that in turn, like, that fucked me up mentally, emotionally. Like I was a fucking mess, you know. And
it costed you like a lot of valuable years, I guess.
So much. It just took so much rebuilding on myself, like internally, to make me who I am right now, you know what I mean? Like, and the work's never done. I mean, I just feel like it definitely fucks you up for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, and that's like what's so interesting. I know we'll probably talk about it in the future, but our dynamics and our stuff are so the same. Because, I mean, obviously you guys were both military members, and then in my situation, you know, like I had only been in the military for like a year and was changing stations, and, you know, just came across this person where I guess from the jump it was, now looking back on it, it was from the start, it was kind of just started with the bad decision. You know, started with the bad decision of, you know, just doing things that I always prided myself on not doing, pretty much, you know, and that's basically having sex with someone unprotected. I prided myself on doing that. Hey, like, you know, sex isn't that big to me. Like, it's not like I'm doing it all the time, but if I do it, I'm going to make sure that, you know, I'm using protection. And the one time that I basically at this point in my life steered away from that was this instance. And that's ultimately what led, you know, to me, you know, getting this, you know, this chick pregnant, and me having to alter everything at that point, because I already had thought about, I have like maybe a year and a half and then I'm gonna get out, like I want to go, and I was just like, this isn't the life for me. And, you know, I want to be back home, close to family. And now, boom, you know, I knocked this chick up. And just kind of like you in the military, like how it's easier to move when you're married, because everything just happens combined. You guys don't have to worry about doing things individually.
This was like, what, like 3 months after you met her or something? Yeah,
this was like...
So it was super fresh relationship.
Super, we didn't like have no like foundation to go off of. It was like we're hanging out in that honeymoon stage, and then boom, like I'm pregnant, and it's like, all right, like now we got to think like more strategically. You know, it's like, I don't want to say, oh, our marriage was just, you know, basically thought of and, you know, carried out because of a kid. I mean, there was feelings there, but we had to think in the sense of the military, you know, like, this is going to be, you know, easy, you know, like, we're both going to make extra money. We can both move off post. We can give this kid, you know, a good life, daycares. Like, we thought we were just thinking everything. Like, let's just do it together, you know? Like, let's not think about all the things that could go wrong. You know, let's not think about if this is realistically a good decision or not. It was simply just, like, thinking of all the positives, kind of like masking over all the stuff that could go horribly fucking wrong and that eventually did.
Yeah.
We were just masking over that with all the, you know, things that could be amazing and, oh my God, we're going to be parents and all this stuff. And
was it like an exciting thing though? Because I mean, being in such a fresh, brand new relationship and then you find out shit like, I'm pregnant.
I mean, in the sense for me,
because I feel like you've always wanted to be a dad.
Yeah, I was super excited and, like, you know, I wasn't, like, trying to hide anything. You know, I didn't care if, like, people started to find out. Like, I told my mom right away. Like, I was encouraging her to tell, like, her parents and stuff. Like, because at this point we had agreed, yeah, we're going to, like, have the kid and all this. But my level of excitement was definitely higher than hers. And, you know, I guess understandably so. You know, like, I've been in the military. I kind of got my feel for this isn't what I really want to do. And she at the time was kind of more fresh and was like still, you know, wide-eyed. Like, oh my God, like the military, this is fucking crazy. This is so much fun. Like, I'm going to do this forever. And then when you get pregnant and boom, like, and then your eyes start to shut a little bit because it's like, damn, like this is going to take me out of like really being productive in the military for at least a year, if not more. And it ultimately did, you know, like a year and a half, you're pretty much, you know, on your own. You know, you're not doing regular scheduled activities and shit. So I think us making that decision and that happening at such a young age, it was so easy for us to just, in every situation in our marriage, to just kind of sweep it under the rug. Because from the jump, that's what we were already doing. We were already like, you know, realizing that, you know, we probably should have realized at least that we're not meant for each other. We're not like, you know, this was just kind of a thing that should have happened and we should have turned our backs and went opposite directions. But now, since we made that one decision to just look over it, now moving forward, that's what we did in our marriage throughout the whole entire thing. Every fight, every this, like, you know, we didn't know how to communicate because we didn't build that. You know, it was just like straight to, you know, I'm coming at your throat, you're coming at mine, and we could never just like handle stuff like civilly, and it just began to bleed over to everything. You know, like I just started to hate my daily life. You know, like I started to like, and I was really good in the military. It was really easy for me, but I started to make things harder for myself. I started to just hate going to work. I started like, people can noticeably see that something was going on every day. And people are thinking like, you know, now you have a kid, you know, she's this beautiful little girl. Like what, you know, what could possibly be going wrong in your life? You know, that you're showing up to work pissed off every day, or you're isolated, or whatever the case was. And that's because of what I said. Like, I didn't know how to communicate for shit.
But I feel like it was just the fact that you're like, we have a kid, we need to get married.
Yeah, and that's why. But the automatic way of thinking, and you expect that from probably one person, you know? Like, you expect one person in that situation to be like, fuck it, let's get married. But you also expect one person to be kind of level-headed and be like,
Yeah, and that's definitely not you, because you are a very emotional person. You're not logical, so you act highly on emotions.
So maybe I was expecting like, well, I mean, it's not the right choice. Maybe she'll tell me that, you know? Let me just throw it out there and see what she says. But instead, she kind of just joined along, and maybe that was because of, you know, immaturity on her side as well. That she was a child,
essentially.
Yeah. So, man, obviously we're in the military, old enough, you know, like I don't want
Okay,
someone
19. I think she was 19.
I don't want someone to see that clip and be like, whoa, this dude's fucking, you know.
Okay, but
Like,
when I say a child, you were both children. I think
Yeah.
you were like 21 or something.
Yeah,
She was 19.
yeah, it was,
So-
we were still both very young, not mature people at all. I mean, obviously probably on the girl side, more mature than the guy, because
Yeah.
you guys were just more mature. So, but not mature enough to tell me, let's just let this, obviously we still have the whole pregnancy.
Yeah.
So let's just see how we start to develop, and then see if we should get married.
Yeah.
Not flip flop and be like, we're
I
pregnant.
think that makes more sense.
Yeah.
That's something that I've just never understood is like when people get pregnant out of wedlock and their first ultimate decision or their thought process is like, hey, let's get married. And I just don't get that. Like that, to me, it doesn't make sense, because how does a child coming into this world mean all of a sudden I have to be married to you? Like,
Yeah.
you know, we know the consequences of having unprotected sex. At least you should.
Yeah.
And so if a child comes from that and you're not married, I mean, if you ultimately want to be with that person and you guys have been together and you're just like, okay, yeah, like, you know, eventually we'll get married, like maybe after the baby's born, this and that.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes more sense to me. But there is a lot of people out there who have, you know, the mindset as you guys did, and they think like, I'm pregnant, you know, that I should get married, you know?
Yeah.
And I just feel like that doesn't mean you guys are going to be a happy, like, productive, you know, couple.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
we
Like,
we definitely weren't. We were everything but happy and everything but productive. And like it was just every bad thing you can possibly put up into one big ball in life, and like think about it, like that you should probably stay furthest away from that huge cloud of bad decisions and just a fucking crazy, you know, whirlwind of emotions. Like stay furthest away from that in life and you'll be fine. Like we were walking directly in that every single day, and it was just horrible, you know. And it was definitely, for me, it was not a happy marriage, you know. And a very small percentage of it I can say that it was, and that was very early on. From that point on, it was realistic, like everything but that. So, you know, so, and like I said, it's probably a small percentage that people that do get married early and have a happily, you know.
Yeah, it's definitely not something you see very often. I mean, and I think that's awesome when it does happen, you know.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
there's just the fact that you were able to just find that one person.
Yeah.
That.
Anything that defies the odds, like,
Yeah.
or is amazing.
That's cool.
So, you know, but in my sense, and that unhappiness got drug on for so long because not only did we get married because we were having a kid, we ultimately stayed together because we had a kid. And, you know, and it almost feels like nothing could really open your eyes to that, because like a kid is so monumental in your life that just the thought of you have a kid with someone, you almost feel backed into a corner. Like, I don't care if this person is like putting hands on me, if this person is verbally abusive, if they're, you know, drinking all the time, if they're never around, like all that stuff just doesn't matter sometimes in these situations, because you're so like you're like mental is just so clouded by this kid. Like I want this kid to have two parents, I want them to both be in their life 100% of the time, and I don't want to do the whole you have, you know, you get her this week, I get her, like I didn't want to do that. So I constantly just put up with everything just to stay together for, you know, my daughter. And ultimately it did so much more damage than you think being apart, you know, from your kid a certain amount of time, like whether it's every week or one, you know, every weekend, whatever the case is, you think that's more damaging. I promise you, staying together, you know, as, you know, a couple, a married couple, just for the kid or kids is the complete wrong answer.
Yeah.
Like as soon as you feel traction, or not traction, but I'm not even thinking like what the word is.
Tension.
Yeah, like tension or any of that kind of stuff going on, and it becomes too much to handle, too much to resolve.
Yeah. Like if it's something that's just pretty much deemed irreparable.
Yeah, like cut. That's where you start to like wean yourself off of that marriage and ultimately move to cutting ties. Yeah. And just accepting the fact that it didn't work out. It was probably destined to not work out. And let me be the smart person. But instead, I fell right into the trap of being,
I feel like that's very hard, though. Like, it's already a hard decision to make to leave your marriage. I mean, like I said, I was with mine for 8 years before I was like, okay, enough is enough, Yeah. It's a very courageous decision for anyone to say, okay, this is enough, like this isn't working out, because ultimately my happiness is better than this misery I'm living in, Yeah. And I feel like having a child or having multiple children, that just amplifies the difficulty in that, and I just think, I mean, I'm the product of divorced parents, you know what I mean? And I just feel like my parents, they weren't necessarily, they were young when they married, but they waited several years, like 8 years before they had me. Yeah. So they were already mid-age, like mid-20s pretty much. And I mean, they were old enough to know what they were doing. Yeah. And then I just think that relationship was just so bad in itself that I don't know if they meant to get pregnant or if they thought maybe like having a child would make things better. Yeah. And so here I come along, and then, shortly thereafter they split up. And it's like, when I look back, and it's like, yeah, of course, like I would have loved to have like my mom and my dad in the household, and then, know what that's like and not be like a product of divorced parents. But at the same time, I think about the dynamic of who my mom and who my dad is. I love them both very much. They're amazing people. But together, it was tumultuous. You know what I mean? So it's like, I always joke that if my parents stayed together, I would probably be a serial killer today. Dang. I honestly think that's because, and it's crazy that I always think that, because currently we're watching the Dahmer series, and it's on Netflix, and it's showing that his childhood was that way. Like, his parents clearly fucking hated each other. Yeah. But they stayed together. They had another child together. He was like 17 years old when his parents finally split. And I'm just like seeing that crazy environment that he grew up in. I'm like, well, no wonder he fucking killed people. Like, Yeah. I mean, he took it a step further by fucking eating them and shit. But
well, yeah, but that's not what, as a parent, as parents in that environment, just continue. You don't know, like, you're not even thinking that far ahead. Like, 20. I mean,
of course, maybe not.
20 years from now, my kids. In the
sense that you're just like, every day is become an argument, and like you get to that point where you just like physically start hating this person that you once said your vows to in front of all these people. It's like, how do you feel that I'm like, this whole thought, I'm gonna stay together with you until the kids graduate and move out? Why do you think that's a good idea? Like, there's people out there that do it, and they necessarily feel like they think it's I don't know, they think it works or something. Like, I don't understand it. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me, because I feel like you cannot raise a child properly and teach them love and self-acceptance, within themselves, if they constantly see you being berated by your partner, or you berating your partner, you know what I mean? It's like they grow up just seeing hate from two people who say they're supposed to love each other. Yeah. And to me, that it just doesn't make sense. I think that in order for you to truly take care of your children, you have to take care of yourself first. Yeah. Because if you're not well, how do you possibly manage to take care of somebody else? Yeah. You have to be straight. You have to be so like deep within your own foundation, like you truly love yourself and you want yourself to be happy. That way that exudes off of you, and your child can see like, oh, okay, like this is what self-love is, this is what happiness is, like my parents don't have to be together in order for that to be portrayed, Yeah,
and that's why I said, like, I think making that decision earlier rather than just waiting around, you're gonna see that, okay, now it's time to work on myself, And then I think ultimately, you know, as far as you go, you can't help the other person anymore.
Yeah.
But as far as you go, like, you're going to be fully capable of setting the best example possible.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like that is so important. And staying together for the kids is just the wrong answer. You know,
Yeah.
like
I feel like it teaches them to how do you say, like, oh, I had it in my head, like, how I was going to say it.
yeah.
But I feel like that teaches them to, like, put up with more shit. You know what I mean? Like, it teaches them, like, okay, well, I'm supposed to be in this, like, shitty relationship because my parents did it. You know, like, this is how I was raised.
That's true. They start to think, like...
You become more resilient to bullshit.
Yeah, they think that shit's okay, and that your capacity for, like you said, putting up with bullshit or abuse, whatever, like, parents are putting on their kids, like, you start to think, like, oh, that's fine, you know, like, I can put up with that, like, that's all you're gonna do to me, like, that's fine, you know, like, if it doesn't go past that, like, it's cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I just, now thinking about it, it's crazy how detrimental that
now
really
that
is.
you think about it now, I mean, you guys essentially stayed in the relationship for several years more. You know, your daughter was a little bit older. Do you think that you would have left sooner?
I definitely should have left sooner, and I did think about it. You know, that there was conversations multiple times about this just isn't working. You know, we tried the whole break thing. We tried the whole, like,
you guys did therapy,
you know, and, like, couples therapy or marriage therapy or whatever the heck it's called, like, is probably the worst thing that you possibly can do to think it's going to save your marriage. And I don't know, maybe people have differing thoughts on that one, but the worst experience ever trying to save my marriage.
I think you can't save a marriage that's already broken by doing therapy. At that point, it's beyond therapy.
Because most of the time, in a failing marriage, it's not like you don't know why it's not working. You know exactly.
Like people think that choosing therapy is going to make things better, but you have to do therapy before it gets bad. Because then you're equipped with the correct tools in order to stop something from escalating quickly or, you know, going off into that, like, crazy negative side of things, you know. But when you're already there and that's already the structure and the dynamic of your relationship, you can't fix that, because at that point you already hate each other. You're already in your own, like, it's his fault, it's her fault.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to be able to come back from that.
Yeah. So it's definitely, you know, I definitely should have made that decision earlier, but ultimately, you know, through everything that we've both been through, I'm glad that the decision was made at some point, you know, because we were both going down a dark path and we're both okay with it almost, you know, both almost thinking that, hey, this is life, and
you guys were living like roommates essentially at the end.
Yeah, like I made that big decision years ago and I'm riding with it, you know, like whatever it is, if we, like you said, if we just become roommates in this house, or, you know, we become so distant that we just ultimately just forget who that person is. Like, do your own thing, do like all this crazy shit that happens. I don't know. I'm just glad that we both made that conscious decision and it benefited us so much, you know, like, as corny as it could sound, I mean, we found each other after all this. We can relate and just look back on it, and, you know, we can have our laughs and our conversations about it, you know, like we just did.
I feel like it kind of strayed you away from relationships in general.
I mean,
like,
yeah,
you were just like, I'm not fucking doing this again.
I would tell people, like, people would ask me if I was ever going to get married again, and, you know, and I would tell people I'm never getting in a relationship again, you know, like I almost held true to that for years after you know, everything was done and paperwork was signed, and I was just riding on my own, you know, like I hung out with friends, but like relationships and anything that came along with girls, I was keeping myself so far away from.
Yeah. Because
I was telling myself that all the time, like,
you're like, we could hit once and then bye.
No, what? No, like, see, like, And people thought that too, you know. People thought like, oh, you're a free man now, like, you know, like what you got now you're in your own apartment and all this stuff. What are you doing? Who like? And I'm like, bro,
What
like,
are you doing?
I'm playing Call of Duty with my brother every night again, you know, or I'm watching a movie.
I feel like you're kind of like, I don't know, just doing the things that you weren't allowed to do. Because there was a lot of, you know, we talked about it in our last episode or whatever, or our first episode. But it's just being controlled to that extent where you just simply could not even hang out with a friend of the same gender as you, you know? That's
true.
You know, it's like, I just feel like you kind of just took full advantage of picking up on lost time, you know?
It was definitely an eye-opening decision, and, you know, eye-opening in the sense that, like, damn, you should have made this decision a lot sooner. And, you know, who knows? But I don't know. It is what it is. It's life, and sometimes you have to, you know, you have to be beat up by life time and time again in order to finally get the shit figured out.
Yeah. I feel like if you're not learning from a mistake, or you're not learning from like whatever it is that you're going through, you're going to keep going through it until you're finally like, oh shit, like maybe I should take a step back. And, you know, it creates a lot of self-realization, which a lot of people I feel lack. And once you are able to just kind of pinpoint something and just think back to like, okay, this and that caused this, you know, and I need to be able to say no as a person of, you know, your own intellect. Like, I should not be going down this path.
Yeah.
You know? I just feel like it essentially makes you a better person for yourself, you know, not just necessarily for anyone else, but it makes you better for you.
Yeah. And that's clear. That's evident. Like, if people knew you from before and maybe they come across you now or whatever, they've been here the whole time, they'll see the change.
Yeah.
They'll see the change that all this, you know, negativity and bullshit that you went through, what it did to your character, what it did to you as a person, as a friend, and then as a girlfriend, a wife, a husband, boyfriend, moving forward. You're just so much better for it, you know? So, like, with just all of these thoughts, like, I hope you guys could, like, if you guys are in this spot, you guys can learn from what we just spoke about and either hash it out or cut ties, you know.
Yeah.
And I know there's so much things that we spoke about, and I think they're all relatable. So if you guys do relate, just like I said, you know, make sure, you know, you do watch this and learn what you can. Give us your feedback. You know, the support has been crazy, so continue to show it. Continue to like, comment, subscribe. and just share. I mean, that's something that I really haven't seen yet, is sharing. So please share. And yeah, we're going to wrap this one up. It's the Unrestricted Podcast, because here with us,
anything goes.
Peace.